Welcome back to Yoga Awakening. I'm Katie. And today's practice is a feel-good flow for legs and hips. Let's get started. Let's come into tabletop position. So find your way into your tabletop. You don't need any particular props for today's practice, but if you happen to have a couple of blocks, you could bring those right to the top of your mat. And then a few rounds of cat and cow to get started. As you inhale, the belly drops. And as you exhale, we round and curl from tailbone up through the crown of the head. Inhale, opposite direction. Front body lengthens. And as you exhale, the back body lengthens. Inhale to press into the tops of the feet, spread the fingers. Exhale to round. Take a couple more rounds here. You might start to sync up with your breath. See if you can start to settle into the rhythm of your breath, maybe closing the eyes. Find your way back to center, neutral spine. On your breath in, step the right foot forwards, bring it to the outer edge of the right hand. Lizard pose. This might be the perfect time to employ those blocks for underneath the hands, any height you like. Because we're wanting to create a relatively easeful pose as we get started here. Maybe especially if you're practicing in the morning. Maybe the body is feeling just a little bit stiffer. Even if it isn't, it can be nice to back off a little and find a little ease. Remember, this is our feel-good flow. Breathe in, finding hopefully some nice sensation there for the hip. And breathe out. Next move is to shift the hips back. So we're coming into runner's stretch here, but perhaps a variation you are less familiar with where we're leaving that heel probably a little further over towards the right edge of the mat instead of lining it up straight there with the hip. Again, you might bring those blocks back along with you. And then we're going to rock the foot side to side along the heel. And as you rock side to side, so toes coming over to the right and then toes coming over to the left, see if you can keep pelvis and hips steady and unmoving. So instead of shifting the hip side to side to move the foot, we're keeping the hip stable and imagining that ball and socket joint of the hip as we rotate side to side. So just finding perhaps that subtler movement, that articulation of the joint. And then tune into the body. You might notice that sensation along the back of the leg or the back of the thigh shifts as the heel, the foot shift side to side. And then find your way to stillness. One round of breath. You might like to round the spine, maybe folding forward slightly. And back through to that lizard pose. We'll shift over towards the right, towards that right foot as we come to face the long edge of the mat. Skandasana, so the side lunge. And I invite you here, if your heel does often come down to the mat, to ease up off and instead, again, find this perhaps softer sensation, maybe a little movement, a little rocking side to side. Of course, you could also be using your blocks here under the hands, maybe blocks underneath the hips to support. Find a little rock, a little wiggle side to side, maybe a little more lifted than you might usually be. Explore there through the legs and hips, maybe pointing and flexing the left foot. Nice little stretch and strength there as well through the right foot. You might be noticing if you tend to bring the heel down to the mat. And then we're making our way over to the second side. Hands walk over to the left. And we switch, coming on now to the right heel and the left toes. Once again, take a moment to explore soft and easy movement. Finding this balance between strength and stretch. So that kind of balance of lifting, using the muscles, and sinking in, relaxing the muscles. Noticing where that balance is for you today. And then it will make our way to face the back of the mat. Find your way into your lizard pose on the second side. So again, grabbing the blocks. I love the blocks in these poses where we're really focusing down on the lower body. Big breath in, big breath out. Let's shift the hips back. That variation of our runner's stretch. Left heel a little further over to the left. See how that feels first, and then start to take those rocks side to side, this rotation in the hip joints. You might notice if one side is harder than the other. Maybe they feel roughly the same. Explore those textures along the back of the left leg. And then one moment in stillness, feel free to fold forward somewhat if you like. And then we'll send it through back to that lizard and come to face once again the long edge of the mat back to Skandasana. Let's shift it over to that original side. You might test yourself here, no hands. And then turn to face that original side. Now we're on the front side of the mat, facing front, left knee down. And you can set the blocks off to the side now. Big inhale, we're lifting up to high lunge. So lift the back knee to start. Arms reach up and overhead. Make sure that you're not on a tightrope here, so give yourself space, not only front to back in your stance, but also left to right. On an exhale, we're lowering the back knee down as it bends, so kind of thinking of two 90-degree angles. On your exhale, lower. Hover that left knee and pause. Lots of work for both legs. Strong. Inhale to press back up to high lunge. 2 more lowers just like that. On your exhale, sink it down as you bend the back knee. Let it hover. Maybe let it shake. Feel the muscles having to adapt, having to work. Inhale, back up. Exhale to lower. Great. Inhale, back up. Pause here. High lunge. Inhale. Shift it forwards. Hands can come to heart center or maybe to the hips. And we're tapping the back knee towards the back of the right knee. So left knee tapping towards the back as you bend through the right knee. Inhale, send it up, one-legged Tadasana. If this pose felt maybe not so feel good today, a little challenging, you might just bring through to one-legged Tadasana and pause there. So pause there for a couple rounds of breath, or we'll take a couple rounds to move through those two shapes. So inhaling through up to that one-legged Tadasana, pressing evenly through the right foot as you bend the right knee, left knee taps behind. And one more time through. Great, send it back to high lunge. And we're opening it up to an open twist to the right. So arms reach nice and wide. Doesn't have to be any more specific than that. Feel how that shift of the balance point in the pose maybe changes where you feel the sensation through legs and hips, maybe sink down a little lower. And then hands that come to heart center. Staying in that twist, all we're going to do is send it about halfway forwards with hands in prayer pose. So think of this like that lifted version of a revolved lunge. But we're staying up a little higher, feeling that work through the right hip, right leg. Breathe in. And as you breathe out, we have a big move here. We're going to start to unfurl over, once again, to the long edge of the mat, warrior two. Inhale. On your exhale, the hands come down to the mat to frame that right foot. Step it back either through to tabletop and then to child's pose. or through to downward facing dog. So pick your path here. In either pose, you could take a little gentle movement, maybe just shifting the hips a little side to side. Inhale. Exhale. If you're in down dog, slow release of the knees back to the mat. We'll all meet back in tabletop. Great. Opposite side, step the left foot forwards. Curl the back toes under. Prepare to lift that back knee and come into your high lunge. So once you feel like you've got that stability, go ahead and lift it up. Reach the fingertips up towards the ceiling. And we'll take those lowers. So as you're ready, you can always shorten your stance here a little bit front to back and widen it a little bit side to side. As you're ready, that exhale lowers the back knee. Let it hover. Inhale to lift. Exhale to lower. Let it quiver or shake. Inhale. One more. Exhale. Great. Inhale, pause there, high lunge. And then we have those two options coming up for either stepping it forwards in a few steps to our one-legged Tadasana, or stepping it through to that sort of curtsy lunge and then up to one-legged Tadasana from there. So as you're ready, hands can come to heart center, maybe that curtsy, and then the lift of the right knee, one-legged Tadasana. You could pause there, or move through a few rounds of this flow. So mindful movement, it doesn't have to be as low or as far or as hard as you can go. But enough challenge there to start to feel some heat to building in the body. And one more. From a one-legged Tadasana, we'll step it back, high lunge. And then we open it out to that twist to the left. So wide arms. And then hands that come back to prayer, but we're staying in that twist. So feel that rotation of the torso. As you exhale, it's that sort of halfway lower into what would otherwise be our revolved lunge. So halfway lower. Inhale. Exhale, here's that big open as you plant the right foot, warrior two. Breathing in. And as you breathe out, hands return back to the mat to frame that foot. Once again, we'll step it through a tabletop. And here we'll take just a couple of rounds of cat and cow. And then make your way to a seat with the legs outstretched. So we're winding down our practice with a forward fold. So with that quality of ease in mind, that attention to balance, notice where it would feel best for you to hang out in the pose for about a minute. So maybe spreading the feet a little wider, maybe keeping a more lengthened spine or rounding forwards. A generous bend through the knees if you like, as I often do. Notice that energy that we've probably started to stir up in the body, maybe especially there in the lower body. That balance of strength and stretch. And finally, perhaps noticing the beat of the heart. If you like, stay in the pose for another minute or a few more rounds of breath. Or otherwise, if you're ready to end the practice with me, find your way to a seat. Draw the hands to heart center. The light in me bows to the light in you. Namaste.